Hello, this is Lee Johnson of the Johnson Group, the Public Sector Recruitment Specialist. I'd like to introduce you to Chris Bunny, who's the General Manager for the Construction and Housing Markets at MBIE. Chris, I'd like to ask you first about why you are enjoying working at MBIE and the role that you're in at the moment.
So I started at MBIE in about March this year. I was drawn to the role shortly after MBIE was created for a number of reasons. The first reason was to be involved in an organisation that is really forming.
Yes.
So MBIE itself is an amalgamation of various other agencies, and that's quite exciting to be in. You know, that kind of change is quite a unique opportunity. Yeah. Another part was the size of the organisation itself. So I previously worked in the Ministry of Social Development for a period, another big organisation, and whilst it can present some challenges, it can present great opportunities. So that was appealing. The second main reason was the people.
Yes.
So I looked at the colleagues that I would be joining, and I was pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
It really is great to work with people that you learn from and can really kind of work with and achieve. The third thing is the work itself. So hardly a day goes by that you can't look at the news or read the newspaper and see something about the housing and construction industry and kind of the implications for all New Zealanders. So being involved in a real time of change in terms of where policies go in those two areas is a real privilege, and that was the key reasons for me joining.
Cool. So can you tell us a little bit about the work program that you're involved in?
So we do cover the whole of New Zealand, so both the housing and construction industry goes right from the far north to the bottom of Stewart Island. Right. But at the moment we're really looking at a couple of key areas even more intensively.
Yeah.
So
those are?
Canterbury.
Right, yes.
So clearly the earthquake had implications for both the construction and the housing industry and market.
Right.
On the construction side, we're looking at the way that the buildings performed through that event, and what we can learn from it, and how we might need to change the way we think about building, both in Canterbury and across New Zealand. On the housing side, and this is very relevant to statements that you hear quite frequently from, say, the Reserve Bank government, we are seeing real affordability issues, particularly in Auckland, but there are other areas in the country. And that has big implications for not only the people who want to live in Auckland in those very popular areas, but also the economy more generally. So it affects the way that people can get into the labour market in those communities if they can't afford to live there.
Yeah.
It's either long travel distances or they simply can't work.
And that stalls economic growth.
And it stalls growth. And then it's the kind of macroeconomic implications. So if we start to have too much kind of debt, that has implications for interest rates, and that affects people right across the country.
Right, none of us want that. Yeah, so we're all involved in the housing market in some way or other. What sort of successes or policy changes that you might see coming up over the next 12 or 18 months, or out of the work program, if you can share that?
Sure. So we saw a couple of years ago the government asked the Housing Shareholders Advisory Group to have a think about our social housing model. So currently, as you would know, Housing New Zealand is the major provider of social housing.
Yes.
This group recommended that they needed a little bit more of a market operating, a bit more diversity in terms of who's providing what and making sure that we have quality homes in the right locations. So we've been doing a lot of work on
policy
that.
work, yes.
There's a piece of legislation currently in the House on that, so that one's really starting to accelerate. Another one is the affordability work stream.
Right.
So again, through the budget and a recent introduction of legislation was measures the government's keen to put in place in various locations in New Zealand to try and create or increase land supply as a mechanism to try and bring down price.
Right.
So again, really interesting stuff, and quite a innovative approach taken to the way that we've engaged with Auckland Council.
Yeah. So you're doing some different things there, and perhaps tell us about that, please, and the types of people that are contributing towards this work program.
Yep. So I think in terms of the different things, I just mentioned Auckland Council. We have an accord that we've been working up. Minister Smith is the Minister of Housing, and the Mayor and council staff and ourselves have been kind of negotiating and discussing and working out how we can form a partnership.
Right.
quite a different thing for me in my career. Often central government tends to kind of write policy and put it out there and kind of wait for things to happen. This one really involved us rolling up our sleeves and sitting with local government and really kind of coming up with practical measures.
And that means people in your team are actually engaging much more closely with external stakeholders.
Yeah. What has really struck me joining this role is how much external facing kind of
aspects. Great opportunity. Yeah. And just lastly, what sort of people do you have in your team, and where do they come from, and what sort of backgrounds and disciplines?
So we have a real range, and I must say that I was really excited when I joined and found out who was in my team. I knew some of them already, but not all of them. And there really is a mixture of experience and knowledge, and then some newer people with some different skills. So I think there's a really good base.
Yeah.
So what I'm kind of looking for are people that are prepared to do things a little bit differently.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it's a real time for innovation.
Yes.
I really want a vibrant kind of workplace where people are looking for opportunities and taking opportunities.
Yeah.
I want a bit of risk taking, but I also want good judgment. And I really want people to develop. I think we're creating an environment with all these other factors that makes it quite an exciting place to be.
Yeah.
And I want people to come in and really gain through the experience.
Right.
So certainly contribute, but take something as well.
Right. So with the challenges comes lots of opportunity and a chance for growth and development, and sounds like a fun place to work at the same time.
I think it is.
Yeah. Okay. Lovely. Thank you, Chris.